Caution, guys. Don't do what I do. Just 'cause I do it doesn't make it right. I know better, and you should too.
Alright guys, so today I figured we'd take a little look at the old Corvette. So this here is my 76 Corvette that I foolishly bought a month before my wedding. And let's have a look around it here. As you can see, she's growing up through the grass. It's got a really nice back bumper. This is what happens when you keep a Corvette in cold storage instead of heated storage. It does have the rally rims. It was a small block car. The interior, except for the grass here, is actually pretty nice. She's a little weathered, but it is the leather. It needs a good cleaning like everything I own. Power window car, automatic. Unfortunately, it's got the aftermarket stereo in it, but there was no stereo at all. Someone had already cut it out. And this is the kind of thing that keeps a happy wife. So she's got 99,000 miles on her. Let's have a look under the hood. So as you can see, she's not exactly original anymore. Don't mind the fact that there's no intake on it right now, but that there is a 6-liter out of a 2001 3/4 ton Chevy that I bought from work for $1.05 because I had to pay taxes. And it actually clears the hood pretty good. I did shave the alternator a little here. I didn't really need to, it did clear, but I wanted a little more. And I oversized the holes in the bottom of the alternator just to get it to drop down a little. Power steering, I have the 3-line power steering pump on it right now off the truck for the hydro boost, but I will be changing that. I've got the manifold off it right now because I'm working on the steering upgrade for it, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Don't mind all the grass seed in here. That's from the mice that made a nest in the hood, and if you shake the hood you can get a little bit to fall out. If you guys have never worked on a C3, you should know this. This is the best spot to keep all your spare bolts because, well, it's got this nice netting in the corner. Well, it's more of a screen. Keeps it all in there for you. So, we'll take her around to the other side and I'll show you what's going on with the water pump. Alright, so if you look down in here, you can see I've cut the ends off these nipples for the heater hoses. And I am going to put heater back in the car. I just, on a Corvette, because the engine sits so far back, it hits the back of this sway bar, or this control arm here. Zoom out a little bit, and you can maybe get a better look at that. Anyway, you can see right here, I'm going to put the 1 line. And then I do have to change the thermostat outlet down here, because I flipped it around and it's pointing straight at the belt, and it's not going to work very well. But it was pointing straight at the control arm right here. So I'll have to get a straight one for it. And anyway, I'll put the second heater hose coming out of this right here on the water pump. And then I can run my factory lines right into it, no problems at all. Anyway, you can see down here, crank clears very well, lots of room. And I've got it bolted to the Turbo 350 down there. It's a little tough to tell, but I've got it bolted to that for now, but we're going to change that, and I'll show you the tranny we're putting in there in a little bit here. You can see down in here, we've got the truck manifold off that 6-liter, so of course it had the emissions crap on it that we've capped off, and I'll see if I can find a cheap set of manifolds or headers somewhere, and we'll get that swapped over. But let's have a look underneath. So here we are underneath it, and you can see I've got the nice Batwing Corvette pan on it that I got for a steal of a deal. And I got lots of clearance, lots of height under here now. You can see the old Turbo 350 and the old exhaust here too. That's all getting changed. Of course, that Turbo 350, no matter how many times you resealed it, the frickin' thing just leaked and leaked and leaked. But you can see here, I've got my steering rack out of an '08 Buick. And I think it's going to be a little too long because I've got no outer tie rods on it right now, and this side's just in from the wheel. It would fit over to the knuckle. I got my old tie rod there. But when I take you over to the other side, you'll see the problem. So when we come over here, you can see while the other side was not in a bad position, I'm 3/4 of the way across the tire on this side with that steering rack. So what I'm thinking about doing is shortening the inners and threading them again, and then getting a different sleeve or building my own sleeve over from the factory outer tie rod end. And I'm hoping to maybe move the rack farther ahead a little more to get it to get the geometry I'm looking for. But of course, I don't know yet whether I can make it work or not. You look up in here, you can see the nice ICT adapter plates for the old engine mounts, and my factory Corvette engine mounts up in there. If you look down from above here, I don't know how well you can see it, but there's that steering rack as it sits right now. And what I'd actually like to do is move it even farther back. But that may involve tipping the rack a little more when I build the mounts, so that it sits at more of an angle backwards. And I did steal all the steering shaft pieces from the car when I pulled that rack out of the car, and I'll show you all that too. So if we look back in the garage here at some of my junk, I'll show you some of the stuff we have in store for what's going on. First of all, in my nice pail here, I have the steering shaft off the Buick that the rack come out of. So I saved that, and actually I saved this one from, I think it was a 2015 or 2017 Chevy 4500 ambulance. So I might be able to use parts of it, along with, under here, maybe. Actually, I think it's in one of these tubs. Here we go. I have the adapter for the factory steering off the car when I ripped all that out. And we've got the radiator sitting here for it. And of course, I've got my very professionally installed electric fans. That's some good strong string there. I'm going to upgrade the rad anyway. I want to put an aluminum one in. I've been really looking at those Eastwood 3-pass rads, and the price on them is just outstanding for an aluminum rad. And we'll see once you convert that to good old Canadian pesos and do all the shipping math. That's usually what screws us up here. So we actually have two different options for intakes here. I do have the factory truck one, which I have cut a few of the tabs off of it, just trying to clearance it so that my hood would fit. And I did get it fitting. And I also have what they call the Trailblazer SS intake here. Of course, bigger throttle body. Supposed to make way better power, and I've detabbed some of it too to try and get it to clear. And I had to take the map sensor off the front because it hit the hood, and I'll have to relocate it if I plan on using this. But one of the main problems with this intake is with the bigger throttle body. The problem is, if you look at that, it points upwards, which works fine in 90% of vehicles, but in a Corvette your hood is so low, especially near the front, that it actually points the throttle body into the hood. So I either have to make an adapter to angle it back down and put a throttle body on it, whether I use the factory one or a car one. The truck factory one that I have, I can show you, it's kind of a bulky thing. Here it is right here. It's awfully big and bulky, whereas the car one, if I set this on here, I'll show you. If I can get her on there with one hand. There we go. The car one, it all kind of hangs off the side lower. And I mean, I can flip this around, but when I flip it around, it hits the alternator, so kind of screws me there too. And then of course, the rail that goes on this one sits a little bit higher, and it also isn't the return style rail, which isn't a big deal. But the nice thing about the truck intake is that it has that return style rail. So if you look at the differences between the rails, you can see that in my nice pile of garbage here, there is the Trailblazer SS rail, and there is the truck rail. The truck rail has the two lines coming off it, your supply and your return, which is awesome because it's got a built-in regulator. And any of you that have watched Sloppy Mechanics, he's explained this really well and shown that these factory regulators and factory rails are awesome for any boosted applications and whatnot. And I haven't decided whether I'm going to turbo the car or not, but it's just nice to have that ability without having to spend a bunch more. And the thing is, the other thing about this Trailblazer intake and everything I got with it is it was a E85 car too. Like, it was a flex fuel, so it's got the bigger injectors, and I kept all the plugs so that if I want to put the bigger injectors on the truck rail and put them in the truck intake, it's not a big deal. I mean, I'll obviously have to have them cleaned and flowed, or I could just risk it. It's not like I'm making big power, and let's be honest, it's me, so I'm going to try and save money, so we'll probably leave it like that. Some of the other stuff we got for it, well, I had the factory PCM that came with that truck, and I picked up a harness because I don't have the one that came with that truck anymore, but I picked up a stock harness out of I think it was actually another 2001 6-liter truck. I was planning on using this harness until I stumbled across this. And I think I showed this in a video already. This is a 6L90 with 89,000 kilometers, they claim. And it is a monstrosity of a giant transmission, but the nice thing is most of the weight and size is in the bottom here. So I've done some reading and I've done some research, and people claim it's going to fit without a ton of modifying in the tunnel. And I'm skeptical about this, but hey, I'll try anything twice. So we're going to give it a try. The other stuff I got stuffed in the corner here is I took a bracket and power steering pump out of the same Avalanche I got the intake and flex fuel sensors from, or flex fuel injectors from, because it's a 2-line power steering pump, and I don't have to worry about capping lines or anything because I'm not running Hydro Boost anymore. So the deal with the transmission is, to run this transmission, I have to switch harnesses and PCM, and that's not a big deal if it wasn't for the fact that the harness I need is for a 58X. My engine is a 24X. So what I'll do is I'll take you out to that engine and I'll kind of show you what that means. So the deal with the 58X and the 24X is it all has to do with the cam and crank triggers for the engine to know what piston is firing, whether it's compression stroke or exhaust stroke, all that kind of stuff. So the differences are, on a 24X, if you look back in here, it's tough to see because somebody named Mike painted this engine all orange. But a 24X has the cam sensor up here at the back, whereas a 58 would pick it up down here off of the timing cover, right? And also, it's a different crank trigger and a different reluctor wheel on the crank with more teeth. And that's the 58X and the 24X has to do with the number of teeth on the crank. And when the teeth on the reluctor wheel go past a sensor, it induces a magnetic field. And the way they do it is there's narrow and wide gap. And when it sees the wide gap versus the narrows, essentially they're all the same size, and then one tooth is missing is how most of these reluctor wheels work. And when it senses the missing tooth, essentially the wider gap, that's its base. It knows this is number 1 or number 8 or number 6, however it's set up in the computer. So when it sees that, it goes, whoop, I'm restarting again. And it restarts. And that's how the computer knows what cylinder is where. I hope that makes sense to you guys. I'm not the greatest teacher and I don't understand everything about everything, but I sure do try. So anyway, because this engine is 24X and the transmission was designed for a 58X system, and being the 6-speed automatic, you kind of need a computer that'll run a 6-speed automatic, and the computers that run the 6 speeds were all 58X engines. So I can't get a factory ECU to run a 24X engine and a 6-speed automatic. And I know what you guys are thinking. Holley Terminator, nice and cheap. And I thought of that. But when I go on the Holley website and when I talk to the Holley tech guys, they all say that a Holley Terminator X Max, whatever, the big Terminator, won't run the 6-speed. And I did a whole bunch of research online, and I've only found about 2 companies that can support the 6-speed automatic, because it's a completely computer controlled transmission and they're really special and unique. And basically, long story short, I need a factory computer to run this transmission, and I know where there is one. I know where there's a 58X engine with the 6-speed automatic behind it, and that's no problem. I can get the engine for cheap. I can get the harness with it, the computer with it, all great. But here's the kicker. To use this transmission with the computer for that truck, I need to take the computer and valve body out of the bottom, which they call the Mectronics unit, and I need to take it out of that transmission, put it in this transmission, so that the PCM and the TCM, or the Mectronics unit, all jive together. And this is one of the things I've read online that a lot of guys had trouble with, that if you can find an engine and a computer and a harness, you need the assembly out of the transmission. So my big idea of getting a 6-speed automatic, then I can run whatever gears I want, have great mileage, awesome, really got a lot more difficult. So the other thing with the Corvette build is I've kind of stalled on it, because I'm going to make a video. I'm going to get Steven to come out and we're going to make a video and we're going to show you guys what we're doing on another car that we've kind of paused on the Corvette for. So I hope you guys stick with us because I think you're going to like it, and we're going to try and make good videos. I'm going to hopefully get better at editing and better at making them, and hopefully we can keep you guys entertained and at least take you along for the ride. So thanks for watching, guys.